You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, and thanks for coming back again to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. We're down to, I guess, the last few days of our journey. We are, I'll tell you what the plan is anyway. The plan currently, I'm actually in a hostel somewhere right now. The plan currently, and certainly was for this week, I was going to try to record every night after each day's hike, but after 2 days, I gave up on that. And so the third recording you'll hear on day number 174 is from a hostel somewhere. But I'll explain how that worked out later on. But the plan is to send out 3 days, which is last Friday, Saturday and Sunday, of the 100 Mile Wilderness, plus an interview with a great family who you're going to love, let me tell you. And that'll be this episode. The next episode will take us right to the foot of Katahdin, and that will be out probably 24 hours after this one. And then, and this may not work, and I apologise if it doesn't work, but what I'm planning to do is to try to take you up Katahdin with me. I'm going to have my phone I'll be mic'd up. The weather's looking good for Friday. Friday the 23rd is our plan, and we're still hoping for that. And I'm going to be mic'd up, and I'm going to stop every 20 minutes or so, just to give you an update of what's happened. And I might, I'm not sure how it's going to work right now, but I want to give you a feeling what it's like to go up Katahdin and finish your journey, because for us, that'll be it. So let's look back now and listen to what happened on day number 172, which was Friday the, Friday the 16th of August. Day number 172, which is Friday the 16th of August, hopefully a week before we summit. Main Route 15, which is Monson, mile 2077.5, to Long Pond Stream Lean-To, mile 2092.6, a 15.1 mile day. Before we talk about this particular day, remember yesterday, the day we went into Monson, we did about 9 miles into Monson. I bumped into just one person who said, "Mighty Blue?" And he wasn't a listener for the show. He lived in the same town as me, and I didn't know him before at all. His name's Giddy Up. He's hiking south, and he came and attended a speech presentation I gave after my first hike in 2014. What are the odds? The one person I saw was somebody from my own town. Quite amazing. Anyway, back to shores and Friday this morning. I'm actually recording, as I said I would. I'm hoping to at the shelter. It's getting dark now. It's almost dark, in fact. Trigger is in the shelter, and the Colonel and Sweetwater have tented, and so there's just the 4 of us here. It's rather nice, actually. But and it certainly turned out better than we thought it was going to, because before we left, by the way, we had the very popular Shores breakfast. It was absolutely packed out, and there was some great food. And we were joined by some trail celebrities, the family yard sale. It's a family, mother and father and 3 kids. And they're lovely people. They're being supported by, I think, his or her parents who drive an RV. And those were the couple who drove us into Monson the day before. They say they've done 20,000 miles on the RV, just keeping up with the family and trying to slack pack them, which is great. And I had a chance to chat with Dad, Marcus, and his young son, Destroyer, before we set out. Destroyer leaves partway through and slams the door, so you're going to get quite a loud noise. But listen to Marcus and slightly Destroyer. Okay, I'm here with Marcus Corey and his young son, Destroyer, which is a pretty darn good name. And so tell us what you're doing out here. Who are you guys?
Our family trail name is the Family Yard Sale. We're a family of 5. We've got 3 kids, an 8-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And my wife and I, we're from Lincoln, New Hampshire, and we started hiking the trail April 2nd.
Oh, really? And at Georgia?
Yep, Springer Mountain.
And we're now talking in Monson. How's it been so far?
It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, for sure. I
Physically, mentally, or everything?
Mentally, I think. Physically too, but mentally for sure. I didn't realize how long, it was going to get. I knew we were going to deal with weather and rain, and I live near the Appalachian Trail and do quite a bit of hiking, but it's just incredible to do this every day. However, I will say that it's the most beautiful thing that we've done. I really underestimated the power of the trail to bond us as a family.
Really? And that's helped us. I would imagine there's a risk one way or the other, isn't there? You could really struggle with each other.
And there's been a few points in the trip that I thought it might swing the other way.
Yeah, so how have the children coped with it? In fact, I'll tell you, before you tell us, Destroyer, would you like to talk to us?
Come stand right over here, buddy, and see if we can hear you.
How's it been for you?
Some parts are hard and rainy days and stuff, and some parts are fun because you get trail magic and you see a bunch of your friends.
Yeah. So have you missed school? Obviously you haven't been to school, or have you been schooled on the trail?
Yeah. We were going to public school before this, and then they just gave us books to do. Right,
so you've taken books with you on what's that? Have you bought it on Kindles or something?
Well, we're really fortunate. We're blessed. My parents decided when they heard we were going to hike the trail to get an RV and follow us. So the books.
I met them yesterday. They gave me a lift into Monson. Yeah.
The books were in the RV.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. So, and so our normal rhythm would be anywhere from 2 to 4 nights in the woods, and then 1 night in the RV.
Right. Nice.
And it worked out really well. And where a lot of thru hikers spend a lot of time getting hitches into towns, and then finding the store to resupply or the place to sleep for the night, we would come in off the trail at 6 o'clock at night. Mom and Dad would pick us right up at the trailhead. We'd go to the camper, we'd have dinner, do our laundry, repack, and we'd be on the trail again the next morning at 7:30.
You did laundry in the
campgrounds.
In the campgrounds. Oh, nice.
Sometimes they didn't have them, and so sometimes we did it in bathtubs, and sometimes we did it with, however you can. But
and I thought there was another family I met earlier on, the Malones, with four young kids, and I wondered when I was going across the Whites and Franconia Ridge, and certainly across the Presidentials, there's some dangerous spots there, and I used to call them these spots of imminent death.
Yeah.
How are you coping with seeing your children jump down those rocks and things?
Well, we actually live at the base of Mount Washington. That's our home, and all of our training was in the White Mountains the last 2 summers. So we were familiar with that. But I have told people, they said, have you ever been afraid on the trail? And I said, I was never afraid on the trail until we got to New England. Right. There was never a time that I thought, oh, if someone falls here, we're in trouble.
Sure.
Until we got to the Whites, and even in Maine too. But there's been a few times where we've sat, especially Destroyer here. Destroyer falls anywhere from 5 to 12 times a day.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's just everywhere. He's bouncing all over the place. But I will say that he really does pay attention when you have to pay attention. And we have said a few times, like, all right, guys, this next section is the real deal. Let's really pay attention to our footing, and let's make sure. And we've been very fortunate. You figure they estimate 5 million steps per person on the trail.
Right.
That's 25 million steps for our family. And the fact that none of us have missed one single day, we've not missed one single day.
Touch wood.
Always. I know. We've not missed one single day. We feel very fortunate, very blessed. A lot of people praying for us. A lot of people, sending us good encouragement. And so we're very fortunate.
Has it shaped you for what happens next with your family, or is this something that's just a one and done?
That's a very good question. The end is coming quicker than I thought.
And doesn't it? It's extraordinary how you think you get through New Hampshire and you still got a long way to go, and suddenly we're in Monson.
Yeah. And so I thought we would have a lot more time to think about that question. I haven't really. I mean, people don't realize how much energy and focus it takes to hike 12 hours a day. And then when you come into camp and you make a meal and you hang your bear bag and you set up camp and then you go to bed, there's not a whole, I thought I'm going to have 5 months to contemplate out here.
Yes. Good luck with that.
Exactly. I mean, you're kind of watching, especially here in New England, you're watching where every step goes. And the next thing you know, you have hiked 12 hours, you just made dinner, you crawl into your tent, and you're gone.
That's right.
8 o'clock is hiker midnight, and you're sleeping.
Your history.
Your history.
Right.
And so you thought, okay, well, so we're very thankful. We did well on our time. And so I have a week before I have to go back to work, and we have a week and a half before they have to go back to school.
Right, perfect.
So we're going to spend a week at my parents' cabin in Maine, where it's just the 5 of us, and we're going to kind of shut out the world, and we're going to do some deep intentional debriefing, some really fun stuff, some just hanging as a family, looking back, and maybe out of that week we'll kind of think of what is next. Or, I'm excited to go back to my job. I love my job. I'm the chaplain of a ski resort, which is pretty cool.
All right, nice.
And the kids love our hometown. And there goes the destroyer. And there you go.
Just destroyed the door.
Just destroyed the door. So we're excited to get back, but we will miss the trail for sure.
Now, I know you're doing this for a far deeper purpose than just hiking. So tell everybody what you're doing this for.
Well, originally, the idea was to give us a break from our job. This is my sabbatical. This is every 7 years, my job gives me a sabbatical, which I feel very fortunate to have that.
Nice.
But when my wife decided to hike the trail, that was what was crazy. She said, I think we should hike the trail. And I said, you're nuts. And the more I got to thinking about it, more talking to her, the more I said, you're right. I think we should do this. We decided to do a video blog because everyone was like, oh, man, we want to see you guys. So I was thinking, man, we just don't want the video blog to just be about us. Like, what could it point people to? And I was with my Rotary Club, and we did a shoe party for an organization in Uganda called Soul Hope. And they're fighting this parasite called jiggers. It's a little flea that lays eggs in people's feet, and it renders them pretty much paralyzed. Sure. And it really takes away their ability to work or go to school, and so they're shunned in their culture, and it's a really big problem. And I know that for the trail, you can work on your legs and get your leg muscles up. You can work on your heart and your lungs. There's nothing you can do to prepare your feet for this trail.
You're right there.
Nothing you can do to prepare your feet. And so we made the correlation of, man, these people are really struggling with feet problems in Uganda. We're going to struggle with feet problems. So every time we have a foot problem, we pray and think about our friends in Uganda. And we thought, how fun would it be if we raised $1 per mile? And that's not just $1 for the 2,192. It's $1 per mile each of us have walked. So we have currently now walked over 10,000 miles as a family unit. And by the end of it, we're going to walk something like 11,200. So that's our goal. I actually haven't really checked to see where we're at. Last I knew, we were over a 2,000 mark, headed towards 3,000, maybe more. But we really love our friends in Uganda. It's open. We didn't know this organization before we started.
Sure.
And now we've really kindled a great relationship, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, we've been hearing about you, and I know a lot of the listeners have been hearing about you, wanting me to speak to you guys. So I'm glad we met. But so if people who do support you want to support this cause, where would they go to do it?
I think the easiest would be to find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Ours is called A Mile in Their Shoes. Nice. A Mile in Their Shoes. And when you get on our Facebook or our Instagram or our YouTube, all of the links that go to Soul Hope, because we actually just pushed it all through them. It doesn't come through us. Right. All the links are straight to the Soul Hope charity website, and you can see how to kind of all do it there. But it's a really amazing organization, and really why we're excited is they're not just giving shoes or just giving foot care to people. They're educating the country.
Sure.
And their goal is to eradicate jiggers because they feel like it's a problem that can be eradicated.
Such a simple fix as well.
Such a simple fix.
As it often is. So.
As it often is. And so they're just educating. They're doing an amazing job.
Cool. Well, look, I appreciate you talking to us, and you haven't got very long to go either, so I wish you well in your finish. And we're sitting here with the rain pouring outside thinking, do we really need to go today? But we probably do.
Yeah, that's the famous saying, no rain, no Maine. And so
no rain, no pain, no Maine.
No pain, no rain, no Maine.
I got plenty of those right now.
Got both rain and pain. Exactly. We've been very fortunate on this trail this year. I've heard horror stories of years past.
Yeah, I think our weather's been great.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's rained on us, I would say, almost once or twice a week. But it hasn't gone on these long stretches of a week of rain.
The forecast looks like it's going to finish at lunchtime-ish, and then we'll be okay, hopefully, fingers crossed, for the rest of the week. But thanks very much for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
Man, Mighty Blue, this is incredible. So cool to meet you.
Appreciate it. All the best.
What a nice bloke he was to talk to. And as he mentioned, there was rain to welcome us to the 100-mile wilderness. And when we got up that morning, it just suddenly started pouring down. And the forecast was pretty lousy all day long, to be honest with you. So nobody was very enthusiastic to get started. However, Trigger and I always tried to get in there first, and we were driven back in the first shuttle, and we got straight to it. We knew that there were rivers to ford on this particular day, and some were worse than others. Generally, we were able to get across by rock hopping, though one, which I believe is the Big Wilson stream, necessitated us taking our shoes off. We got to the stream, and there was no possibility of rock hopping here. The water, because of the rain, was flowing quite severely, and there just weren't gaps. Well, there were gaps of about 6 or 8 feet, and I didn't fancy jumping 6 or 8 feet. Landing on a wet rock, I would have been all over the place. So basically, we just took our shoes and socks off. I tied my shoes together, put them around my neck, and waded across. And I put my zero gravity camp shoes on as well, so that really helped. Using my poles, I got across nice and easily. It was nice actually, because your feet get wet, obviously, but they get cold, which is rather nice. And as soon as you take them out, and I dry them on one of the it's not the buff, what do they call it, bandanas I've got. I dried them with one of the bandanas, and they warm up very quickly. They're very, very comfortable. And I didn't actually mention that what I'd done for resupply. I bought myself 2 brand new sets of socks, two Darn Toughs and 2 new Injinji liners. Give my feet a really good opportunity to have some nice, properly elasticated socks now. I mean, all the elastic are worn out, and the others, they all shrunk, and there were holes in them as well, so they weren't great. So I treated myself to some new ones of those, and also I treated myself to a new Sawyer as well, because the flow was starting to slow down a little bit, and I wanted everything to be perfect for this 100-mile wilderness. But anyway, we took our shoes off. That was the only time we had to take our shoes off, and but because the rain was going all day long, or quite a bit of the day rather, not all day long, probably most of the morning, it was fine, because I was wearing shorts, and if you remember, one of my listeners, Frank Levine, made me a rain skirt, and I haven't used it much, but I used it this time, and it worked really, really well. Put my rain jacket on as well, and I mean, I got wet, but not that wet, so it wasn't too bad at all. Now, Trigger has bought himself some new shoes, because he was slightly worried about whether his shoes would last, and he decided to test them out on one slick piece of rock. It was actually slate, and it really got slick, and he started sliding. He must have slid 10, 15 feet before he just bailed out and fell over and slid down. He couldn't get up at first, and I had to climb around him to try to lift him up, and eventually got him up. It was fine. Later that afternoon, I fell 3 times in the afternoon. Twice I just tripped on the mud. I didn't trip on the slick rocks or the slick roots where it was really dangerous. I just fell on the mud, and I didn't hurt myself at all. And the other time I fell, I tripped up my own poles. Classy, eh? No problems at either time. And in fact, the last time I fell back onto my backpack, so I felt virtually nothing at all. We got to the lean-to by about 5:30, and we were pretty pleased with our 15-miler, because it was rainy, not all day, but it was rainy. It was muddy, it was slick rocks and slick roots, and that's such a difficult combination. And I know I fell 3 times. Trigger said, but they weren't bad falls. You fell in slow motion with one of them, but, a fall's a fall. And so I'm now up to 40. If you recall, my record in 2014 was 45, so I'm getting up there. There was no one at the shelter. Actually, there were a couple of young lads, but they were moving on. These youngsters are quite happy to go to about 7 or 8 at night, and if they have to hike in the dark, they do. They don't really care. So we just we set ourselves up in the shelter, at either end of the shelter, that is. And then the Colonel and Sweetwater came along, and they camped. So at the moment, I'm looking back at the shelter now. All our clothes are hanging to dry. Mine have dried pretty well. We're expecting a bit of rain overnight, perhaps not too bad, hopefully. But then we'll, get on with it again in the morning. But so I'm signing out. It's getting darker and darker here. You can probably hear the river down below, constant noise in the background. And it's beautiful here in the wilderness. Day number 173, which is Saturday the 18th, I think it is, of... no, it must be the 17th. Saturday the 17th of August. Long Pond Stream Lean-To, mile 2092.6 to Chairback Gap Lean-To, mile 2103.5, a 10.9 mile day. And while a 10.9 mile day may not seem too much to you, trust me, you try walking that hike in the rain, and after 2 days of rain, oh my gosh. Because we were told there may be some rain overnight, and so that's why Trigger and I had actually stayed in the shelter, and the Colonel and Sweetwater had set up their tents, but we were expecting some rain overnight. About 3 o'clock, they said. At 4:45, about 15 minutes before all of us were due to get up, we heard thunder, and about 10 minutes later, the clouds opened on us. Sweetwater appeared almost immediately after the rain began. We couldn't believe it, actually, how he'd got out so quickly. But apparently he started packing his tent as soon as he heard the thunder. Unfortunately, the Colonel was still in his tent. The rain intensified, and eventually the Colonel emerged and joined us in the shelter. Trigger and I already decided there was no possibility we were going to be heading out in what was becoming more and more of a monsoon, and it was getting really, really wet. So, of course, we're sitting in there nice and dry. So we just had a leisurely breakfast, coffee, some biscuits and gravy. And the Colonel of Sweetwater had said, well, we might as well head out now. They were pretty damp already, I think. So they headed out about 6:45. And 10 minutes later, the Trigger and I were looking out of the shelter at an utter deluge. It was as bad a rain as I've seen on the entire trip, and I've seen a lot of rain over this trip, mainly actually from inside a hostel, but this was pretty darn nasty. So we just sat there. We didn't really know what we were going to do, and I was starting to think, well, maybe we won't go today because it was so bad, the rain, and suddenly, just imperceptibly, slowly, it started getting better and better and better. By 8:15, the rain had calmed quite a lot, and Trigger and I decided to go for it. By 8:30, the rain had stopped. Though we did have raindrops from the trees throughout the day. And what I mean by that, every now and then the wind just blows to the top of the trees, just blows all the rain off onto you. So it feels like it's raining. But very, very soon I took my jacket off because I was sweating. I still wore my rain skirt, but I was sweating inside because I was going up. There were a lot of mountains today you had to climb up and over. And so, but by and large, it wasn't too bad. Because we were moving, I kept reasonably okay. But what an impact the two shortish bursts of rain we'd had, because there was rain the previous day and then rain obviously this time. And the path for much of the day was often a stream, and sometimes it was almost a torrent. You wouldn't believe it, how so much rain had accumulated. A couple of days previously, I said to Trigger, I'm a bit worried about the availability of water through the 100-mile wilderness. We had no rain for ages. Well, I needn't have worried. It absolutely was coming out of everywhere. And of course, that did mean that there was much more danger. The climbs were frequent, which meant that the descents were just as frequent. And if you remember, I was talking about I felt threatened by imminent death when we were in the White Mountains. And so I felt that the threat of imminent death was upon us once more. Our initial climb was up towards Barren Ledges, which was one of my very favourite views from 2014. But sadly, just cloud or rain or fog today, could not see a thing. It's one of those things I've said about this trip. I see things differently to what I saw before. And sometimes they're magnificent, sometimes they're not magnificent. I saw Barren Ledges on a beautiful day in 2014. I just didn't see it today, or the view from it anyway. The second half of this climb up Barren Mountain came after a flat patch of nearly a mile. But even then, the terrain was so challenging. The rocks were all over the place, and we did a little bit of rock hopping from time to time. And I did feel that on a day like today, climbing up was far easier than coming down. Now, these rocks and roots, they're always treacherous, while the mud seemed to develop particularly slippery tendencies. Both Trigger and I slid and slipped, but we just didn't fall. It's one of those days, you know. I've had far drier days and fallen over twice. Now a wet day like today where every step could have spelled disaster. But we were okay, we didn't fall at all. There were 3 or 4 other mountains, and they came and went. They were all equally difficult on a day like this, and we were getting tired. And eventually we reached Chairback Gap Lean-To and set up inside the shelter before others showed up, and we had a full shelter for the night. It was only a, what was it, 10.9 mile day. It seemed like a 20-mile day, but we're exactly where we should be to finish on Friday the 23rd. So I'm hopeful that we start getting a break with the weather, although some youngster has just told us that the prospects are for rain again overnight and probably tomorrow. And we're hoping to do a 17-mile day. But we'll see what happens when it happens. So that's the end of day number 173. Day number 174, Chairback Gap Lean-To, mile 2103.5, to a stealth site just beyond Logan Brook Lean-To, mile 2120.7, 17.2 mile day. We had quite a small climb out of camp up Chairback Mountain, and we knew this was going to be, the problem with this particular mountain wasn't the climb up, it was the climb down. But it was by far the worst ever climb down we've had. We were coming down at quite a steep angle. By the way, I didn't fulfill my role of trying to record every night wherever I ended up. On this particular night, I was exhausted, and this climb down probably did it to me. And I'll let you know where I am recording from when you hear the next episode, because this is going to be just the first 3 days. Chairback Mountain, it was a tough climb down. I found it, I felt we were back in the imminent death country, where suddenly you got the opportunity to really kill yourself. And both Trigger and I really, really struggled getting down there. It was a tough old climb. And when I look back at it, and I look back at the whole journey, this has been the worst climb down we've had. And when we got to the bottom, we were both kind of scared, to be honest with you. But we did it, so it was okay. The rest of the way down wasn't too bad. And once we passed Katahdin and Ironworks Road, we started the gradual slope up to the 4 mountains that we'd be going over in the second half of the day. And I always find that a climb up in the morning is the way forward. But to be faced with 4 quite good climbs, but no, not massive. But this was really going to be it was going to be a tough day, and we knew, and it was going to be tough in the afternoon, and that is difficult for us. And so we stopped at the Carl Newell Lean-To for lunch, and then in quick succession we took on Gulf Hargus Mountain, West Peak, Hay Mountain, and finally Whitecap Mountain. None of them were massive climbs up, but they all really, really tired us out. And but I'm kind of glad we did it, because I didn't want us to get out of shape for Katahdin, and I know what climbing Katahdin's all about. It is just a constant up, hand over hand climb. And I still wanted that feel of that pull in your legs when you're really struggling to get up there. And to have 4 mountains we had to climb, even though the total elevation wasn't huge, it was enough to keep moving, keep us going upwards. And so I'm kind of glad we did it, although it was tiring. I had massive water issues though, and we'd had rain. We had rain for the first 4 days of the 100-mile wilderness, but we'd had rain again overnight, and so everything was slippery. It really was slippery. But so we were expecting to be able to get water, no problem at all. And early in the morning, it was fine. There was tons of streams, lots of water around. And then in the afternoon on these climbs, there was nothing. And of course, I'm sweating profusely, and suddenly I'm out of water. And I can't tell you the delight you get when you suddenly see a stream. It's a small seeping of water going across a muddy little path,
and you can find water from it. And we found some water from it, and it really, really helped me. And the taste of mountain water is still one of the lasting memories of this trail and I remember it from last time, and I'm certainly going to miss it when we finish this journey. And so we got up eventually up Whitecap Mountain after we got the water, and after that we took our time coming down to the shelter. Trigger was very dizzy for the last hour or so, and we were really relieved to get to the shelter. And he couldn't explain it other than the fact that perhaps we were out of water. He fell twice, actually. And I slipped on wet rock just before camp for number 41. And I don't know what it is. I must have fallen in the last half hour before camp. Of my 40, as it was then, 41 falls, I would think 15 of them have come in the last half hour or so before camp. I think I get tired. I think I get careless. And, we're putting in some decent miles, and I just fall. I just slip on something and I've gone. And of course, because we've had a lot of rain, the rocks and the roots in Maine are just everywhere. And you just have to land on the wrong way, on the wrong rock or the wrong root, particularly when it's wet, and you're flipped over. And the lean-to, I'd read that there were tent sites just 0.1 mile north, and I found a pretty good one, so I was happy with that. Trigger was so exhausted, as I say, he was very dizzy. He slept in the shelter that night, and he was happy just to lie there, and he just got into his sleeping bag and went to sleep straight away. I slept in the shelter. We got more rain overnight. Actually, we didn't actually get more rain overnight. We got rain the next morning as I was cooking my breakfast. So that was one of those things. We've had some tough these first 3 days in the 100 Mile Wilderness have been quite tricky because of the rain, and we're looking forward for it to brighten up. But that is the end of day number 174. So that's where we were on Sunday. I can tell you now, I'm talking to you now on Wednesday. I've got the episodes lined up to go out in 24 hours after this one. And hopefully my plan of summiting with Trigger on Friday will work out. I still can't be sure. So let's just find out. It's been... Going into the 100 Mile Wilderness last time, I actually slack packed it for 4 days. This time we've taken our full pack every day. We've been in the woods every day, and it was tiring, but it was enjoyable to see the 100 Mile Wilderness as a wilderness, not as an easily accessible or way in which we could get out of the forest, and to wake up every morning with damp, filthy, smelly clothes was an experience I think I'm glad it's over, but I'm going to kind of cherish. And the 100 Mile Wilderness for me this time has been so much better than it was last time. But you'll hear about what happened in the rest of the 100 Mile Wilderness and our trip into Baxter State Park tomorrow. I'll see you next time.